Hey everyone, it's T-Lore, and today I wanted to talk through a bit more in depth of a strategy of a build instead of just talking about some combos that I found. So this is going to apply a few of the combinations that I've talked about in previous videos. This is going to be a little bit more of a unique video going through an entire fleet setup, and this is something that you can use as a part of a much larger game. So we're using quite a few points, and this would do really well in a couple 100-point fleet as well, just as part of the support, because there's going to be a lot of benefits from these ships to your entire fleet. So I'm going to start by going through the support ships, which are going to be Paradox and Armada for El Neptuno, which is the main focus of this fleet setup. So I'm going to start with Armada, which is a Spanish flotilla. There's another one, I just don't have it, but we're going to take advantage of the fact that this has extended range. And the extra benefit that this has is when it hits an enemy ship, you can also eliminate a cargo from that ship. So that's really nice. Anytime it's hitting, you're going to either get rid of treasure or crew from that ship. We're also going to take a look at putting a cargo master on here. Just like we talked about in the last video, getting crew and equipment onto a flotilla, we have to use a cargo master. Now, in the last video I said there are only American generic cargo masters, and that still holds true. However, we're going to kind of pretend that Return to Savage Shores was released because there were generic cargo masters in that set. So that was a planned set that was never actually released, but they released all the details after the game was shut down, and we have record of that. So this is, I would say, not essential to this strategy, but we're going to pretend that we can do that. Now, we're using Spanish, which means we can also use Master Bianco, which is another cargo master crew. He's just a named crew, so we can only have one of them. And we'll put him on a different ship. I'll tell you when we would use him instead of using just a generic cargo master. So we can put this on here because it doesn't take up cargo space, and then we get +1 cargo spaces to every other Spanish ship in our fleet. So that means that El Neptuno is Spanish. Armada doesn't get a benefit from this because the cargo master's on this ship. But that's okay. It doesn't take up cargo space, and we have plenty of points to spare because we're going to pick up a chain shot. Now, we'll figure that out exactly where we get it later, but I'll tell you that there's a cargo master on another ship in our fleet that's Spanish. And we could put pretty much any piece of equipment here. We do have to watch out that we have 5 points already spent. But with 9 points, we've got plenty of room to put equipment on here. And again, like I talked about in my previous video, we like to use equipment because we take advantage of the extended range and the ability from the equipment, rather than a specialist where we have problems with when we use that, you have to choose a ship that's within S. And we also get the benefit of, if we use something like Exploding Shot, this doesn't technically have a mast, so when it fails, we're not going to damage ourselves from it. All right, so that's our flotilla. Again, that's really just there for the extended range, but we'll take advantage of it while we have it. We're also going to look at Paradox. Now, you could use Banshee's Cry here, but you'll see why we need all 5 pieces of cargo here in just a second. So for 4 points, Paradox is a great choice. This is never going to go anywhere. It's going to sit at your home island with all these crew on it. So what crew are on it? Well, we have Jonah, no surprise here. This one is a 0-point crew that lets our crew ignore the point limit. So we've got that set up. We've got our 4-point limit. We don't have to worry about it anymore. We just have to worry about our cargo limit, which is 5. So we've used 1 cargo for Jonah. Our next one's going to be Crimson Angel. Crew of any nationality can use their abilities on this ship. So that means we can put whatever we want to for the rest of the ship on here. And we're going to go ahead and put our Spanish cargo master on here. Now, if you don't want to use crew from Return to Savage Shores, or say that generic crew can be any nationality, like cargo masters or helmsmen, then you could put Master Bianco from Savage Shores on here in his place. But for now, we're going to say this is just a regular old cargo master that's Spanish. We're also going to have Roberto Santana. Once per turn, give any ship in your fleet +1 to all of her cannon rolls. And it has Loyal Spain. We have plenty of Spanish stuff in our fleet, so we don't have to worry about that too much. So this is going to be able to support El Neptuno, again, from off-ship. So for +4, for 4 points, you can get an ability that gives you +1 to all your cannon rolls against, say, non-Spanish ships. But that would take up cargo space on El Neptuno, so we're going to put it on instead on our Paradox. And then finally, again, very little surprise that we're going to get extra actions out of Lord Micron. Now, it says Loyal England, so we have to make sure we have something English in our fleet. but we do elsewhere. We'll cover it again when we get to El Neptuno. And instead of giving this ship an action, give another ship in your fleet 2 actions. So those are the 5 crew that we stick on this ship. So it's heavily overcrewed. I mean, you can see how 3 of these crew are more expensive than the ship itself. But we're using these to support El Neptuno. So when we switch to El Neptuno, we pick this ship. It's a pretty inexpensive 5-mast ship, but its cannons are not too amazing. However, if we look at the ability, you may double the range of this ship's cannons each turn. If you do, you must roll a 6 to hit. So now we can pretend that these are 2L range, and they're all 5s. That may not sound that amazing, but remember, we had Roberto Santana over here that we can double the range of the cannons and use that Roberto Santana ability to give us +1 to our cannon rolls. So now we have to roll a 5 or a 6. So we're back down to 4s for cannons because of Roberto Santana. And that may not seem too great, but we'll look through everything else that we've got here in a minute. Next up, we have Horatio Linares. Jade Rebellion crew may use their abilities on this ship. So why is he on here? He's Spanish, and that's important. So we're taking 2 points to allow Jade Rebellion crew. So, all right, let's just spill the beans. Warlord Cavendish is a Jade Rebellion crew that we're going to put on here. And why is he on here? Pirate crew may use their abilities on this ship. Okay, so now we can use Pirate, Jade, and Spanish crew on this ship. We also get the extra benefit of once per turn before giving this ship an action on a 5 or 6, we can give the same action twice. So there's our extra action built in. Now, we do have Lord Micron, so we don't ever really have to worry about that. But that does let us roll for this and then see if we need to use Lord Micron to donate an action. And if we don't, then we can use the action on Armada instead or some other ship in our fleet. So now we can use Pirate crew on our ship, and we're going to use Anna Maria, which is the other pirate crew that lets you use crew of any nationality. So now we have Anna Maria on our ship, and we can use crew of any nationality. So it took us 3 crew to get to the ability to use crew of any nationality. Now, why did we do that rather than using something like Black Mark? We don't want the ship to be cursed because then we don't get the benefit of Spanish cargo masters. And without those cargo masters, we're going to run out of cargo pretty quickly because we're going to use Captain Charles Richard. Now, this lets us put a captain on here, which is really beneficial, as well as the Robinson ability where your crew don't take up your crew don't take up points, but they do take up cargo space. This is going to let us ignore the point limit, and we're going to have him on here because of the crew of any nationality can use their abilities on this ship. So all of that just to ignore the point limit and put our English piece on here. Now he has Loyal England, but again, we have our piece over here for Lord Micron that's also Loyal England. So they're both English. This helps fill out the England loyalty requirement. Once per turn, when this ship is given a shoot action, choose a cannon, roll a d6 twice, choose the result you want to use for the shot. This is very poorly worded, but essentially what this is going to let us do is for one shoot action, we're going to get to roll 2 dice for each cannon. And that comes out of the FAQ that's official for this game, and it kind of clarifies how he works. So even though we have essentially 4s for cannons, we're not going to be worried about that too much because we can couple that and roll 10 dice to try and get 5 good hits out of it. So this is a good way to really avoid also the negative abilities of our equipment. So if we put equipment on here, then when you roll a 1, you have to eliminate it. This way we roll 2 dice and we choose anything but a 1 for that roll. Even if we miss, we're not going to necessarily lose the equipment. So that changes it from a 17% chance down to a 3% chance of losing the equipment when you fire the shot. So as long as you couple him with Roberto Santana for the +1 cannon rolls, when you shoot equipment like chain shot, you're going to really try and avoid rolling that 1 to lose the equipment. So that's why he's on here. He's expensive. This is an interesting application of him. Normally you don't see spending points like this, but again, it's a unique crew, and it's a situation where we're trying not to miss our equipment and roll those 1s to lose it. and we're also trying to hit our really long range shots. So, why are our shots so long range? And the answer to that is Davy Jones. This is why we're ignoring point limit, why we have crew of any nationality. We're going to be copying the extended range from Armada and placing it on top of the double the range cannons here. So we're going to double the printed ranges with Armada, and we're going to double them again and have to roll a 5 or a 6 because of Roberto Santana. And so now we have 4L range cannons. Not to mention that we have a captain, so we can move S plus S before firing that far. So that's a real huge benefit of having Davy Jones on there, is that we essentially have 4L range, and we also have all the Rupert Hargreaves to make sure that we try and hit with those extremely long range cannons. Now, what happens if a ship is within 2L range? Well, we can ignore and pretend that we're not going to use, because it says you may double the range. So we're going to not use El Neptuno's ability. We can still copy the Armada's ability, and now our cannons are even better. So we're going to use our 4s, and they're going to go down to 3s, which means that we have a 50% chance on each shot. And we can still use our chain shot equipment, as well as using Sir Rupert Hargreaves to make sure that we're rolling 2 dice per cannon. So that's one way that if they start getting a little bit closer, you can increase your die rolls. And if you want to get right up close next to them, you don't have to copy the extended range ability at all. You can just let the flotilla fire, and you can use Davy Jones to copy something else. So you can copy some other ability like Roberto Santana, and now you have both abilities because they're on different ships that can apply to this ship. So we're going to give, from Paradox, we're going to give Roberto Santana to give +1 to El Neptuno, and then Davy Jones is going to copy that and say we're going to give from El Neptuno and back to El Neptuno to get +2. So that's one way to, again, use now 2 +1 cannon for a single shoot action. And then we're also going to use the extra Cargo Master and apply a piece of equipment to our ship. So now we can fire this chain shot at 4L range, and that will let us really zone out that ship, and we can just sit there and keep shooting it from far away. If we're not successful, we can shoot it from 2L range for a little bit better odds, or we can get right up next to it, shoot the chain shot, and then maybe run away or something like that, and have even better cannons. So to summarize, if we're using these at L range, we can get them down to 2s for cannons, and we can use our equipment with that. If we're shooting at 2L range by copying the extended range, they're down to 3s for cannons because we're taking these 4s and we're taking the +1 from Roberto Santana, so that makes these down to 3s. And if we're shooting at 4L range, then normally these are 5s from this ability. We've got the +1 from Roberto Santana, so that takes them down to 4s at 4L range. So you can see how that progression from 2, 3, 4 works based on your range. So it's a really interesting progression, and if you had this in an even bigger fleet, you could potentially stuff more Cargo Masters around, get some more plus cannon rolls on here. But for now, this is kind of a small, compact, about 80 points way to do this, so that you have El Neptuno that's kind of trying to control the board with 4L range cannons. Now, how do you shut this down? It's pretty simple. There's a lot of crew on all of these. So if you have ways like Angelica that says crew abilities can't be used this turn, then it just shuts it down. But it's a lot of fun to think about having a ship that's running around shooting off 4L range cannons, and the closer you get, the more odds it has of doing really high damage to you.